This is the road to wholeness.
Well, welcome everybody to a new episode of Road to Wholeness. I'm your host, Josh Hawk, and today on the show we have author Bonnie Gray, who is an author, a speaker, a blogger, a podcaster, and her new memoir, Sweet Like Jasmine, Finding Identity in a Culture of Loneliness, which I read this book. And Bonnie, I just want to say thank you so much. It is such a gift. I could have had 2 pages of notes, and I know that, you know, they kind of marketed this to women, but I want to tell every single dude out there, you've got to go and read this because this is just an incredible story. So thank you for being on the show. And I can't wait to dive into some of the themes from this and just your life as well.
Josh, I feel right at home with you. And I'm excited to have this virtual cup of coffee together. Let's go.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to encourage everybody just right off the bat to go to sweetlikejasmine.com and check out the resources that she has there as well. But I want to jump into one of the major themes that I loved, that I thought this book just brought out, which is the theme of being beloved, right? Beloved identity. I think if there's any theme that we need to hear over and over and over again. My pastor always says, the moment that you graduate from beloved identity is the moment that you don't really get it, right? Like it's something that we always have to hear over and over and over again. In fact, that's one of the things I love about him is he basically just preaches beloved identity almost every single sermon. And it's absolutely amazing, you know? And so walk me through that and just your journey of kind of discovering that as well.
Well, that's never been my name, is beloved. My name has been broken. That's a name I've been hiding my whole life because my mother was a mail order bride from Hong Kong. She's a teenage mom that came here. She didn't know my father. She was chosen in her family because she was a girl. And in the traditional Chinese, now don't think this about Chinese Americans as you meet them, Josh, and listeners and viewers, but in the old school traditional Chinese tradition, girls are not worth very much. Wow. Because they, are going to marry into the husband's family. They take on the family's name. And so my mom was chosen among 8 siblings to marry a stranger so they can emigrate here to America. And they were born below the poverty line. They were refugees from communist China to Hong Kong. And so here's my dad. He's a busboy in a noodle shop in San Francisco, Chinatown. I was dropped into this story of brokenness. As an American, we know we're able to write our stories. But I mean, how does somebody like me even begin to write a story when, my mom and my dad both didn't graduate from high school? I step out the door, I'm American Bonnie. I'm trying to figure out, what do people talk about? What do normal people, what's their life like? And yet back at home, the life of brokenness was what was surrounding me.
Right. So that was a major theme. It was just broken here, broken family, parents get divorced, and then, okay, well, that's broken. And then, you have all of these kind of, kind of codependent moments with your mom as well, too, which means even more brokenness. And then you finally get to go to college, but then there's brokenness there. And so then how did you get out of the name broken and into beloved?
Well, I think it's powerful to share some stories. Yeah. So people kind of get, what did brokenness look like to me? Yes. Okay. The day my father left, I was 7 years old. It's already kind of weird that my parents are have these weird jobs. My mom was a seamstress, right? Basically making pennies to the dollar. You know what I mean? These are not things I can share at school. It's like, hey, what do your mom and dad do? So that's broken. Then my dad left all of a sudden when I was 7. Wow. And the last memory I have of him was my mom and dad yelling at each other, right? At the screen door. He has these suitcases. I'm totally confused. And it's his olive green Nova, tires screeching off the driveway. And I'm like, Amma, that's Chinese for mom. Amma, Where is Papa going? What does she do? She yanks me down to the ground, pulls out the photo albums and starts yanking the photos out. She's cutting up pictures of my father straight into the image of his faces. And she puts a pair of scissors in my hand. She says, start cutting.
What? Wow.
Yeah. And so here we are, like, all the photos cut up across the living room, like, weeds under a lawnmower. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to save one photo. Josh, I was like, I need to save one. She caught me and she's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm not in this photo. You're not in this photo. Can we just keep one? She's like, oh, you like your dad so much. Okay. She grabs me by the neck collar, drags me over to the wall, back in the day when there were phones on the wall with the cord. And she's like, okay, you like your dad so much, go pack your bags. You're not staying here. You're leaving. Right then and there, Josh, I wiped the tears off my eyes. I said, you know what? You're right. He's gone. There's nothing I can do about it. I don't need to know.
And you're like 7?
And I'm fine. Yeah.
7 years old, sitting there. Like I have my own, I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old. I can't even imagine sitting down and going, okay, cut all these pictures out of mom right now. Like that is just, man. So there's brokenness. That's trauma, right? That's major trauma that you're going through right there at even a young age. And then it sounds like there's more trauma that happens later too. So,
well, yeah. So for instance, okay. So then I'm like, I'm kind of the typical overcomer, right? Born below, growing up below the poverty line. Okay. Got to get the education, put myself through school. I'm like, okay, I finally made it to college. Okay. Maybe it can be normal like all these other people that are in college. And then I never had a boyfriend before, Josh. Okay. I mean, I never even wanted anybody to even come to my home. My home is just dingy 800 square foot house. All this furniture is mismatched. I mean, basically there's no social life, there's no sleepovers, nothing like that. Right. And so I finally get to college and I experienced date rape, sexual assault. Like what? Like this is a guy that I thought was safe, Josh. He's quote unquote Christian. He's a Bible study leader. I've known him throughout the whole school year. It was the first date, Josh.
Oh man.
And I tell this story because people need to know, men and women, 1 out of every 3 person has experienced sexual assault, men and women. That means somebody we're sitting at church with, somebody in our small group, somebody in our circle has experienced sexual assault. Now, that's not something we can just naturally talk about. Like, hey, excuse me, I experienced. We hide it, right? But really, it's not just about sexual assault. It's about somebody stole our voice.
Yes.
Somebody violated the boundaries of our dignity.
Yes.
And I tell this story because I was just so crushed. I thought in that moment, he said, hey, let's just stop by my house. I just need to pick up some mail. It was just the first date. I thought, oh, that's fine. He's like, hey, you want to come on in while I, get the mail? I tell the story in the book and I debated, Josh. I said, I don't know if I want to put this in.
Yeah.
Because there's still that part of me that was like, hey, it's all washed under the cross, forgiven. Like, this is just between me and Jesus. Like, I don't want people to judge me, and also I have 2 boys, by the way, 12 and 15, Josh and Caleb. Nice. I love your name.
Yes.
Just to remind myself, I'm writing a new legacy. And before I went on this journey, just to let readers and listeners know, I stumbled on my birth certificate and I needed to realize, I thought that creating a new legacy of faith at that time was erasing my past. Like, let's just start over. The verse that says we're a new creation.
Yes.
Like, I really relished it. I'm like, oh yeah, like
yes,
the past is gone. Like, let's just start new. So at the time, before I went on this journey to find my father, actually, I was like, it's fine. I don't need to know where my dad is. I don't need to talk about the things that happened to me that were broken. My sons don't ever need to know about it. But it dawned on me as I was looking at my birth certificate, and I only stumbled on it because I was trying to sign up my son to go to preschool. Because when you have that second baby, you're like, oh my God, I need sanity.
Yes.
I needed to be away making popsicle stick art for a few hours, right?
Yes, I need a break.
Yeah. So then suddenly I looked at it. It dawned on me. One day, Josh and Caleb are going to ask me, where's grandpa?
Yeah.
Why don't I have a grandpa? And when did we come to America?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I have no idea because I don't know my father. I don't know where he is. My mom forbid me to find him. She said, if you go look for him, I will disown you.
Wow.
And so, that child in us, each of us have kind of those family code, those family secrets that we live by. It's like, okay, fine. I don't need to talk about it, covered under the cross. And I keep saying this because that was a lie I believed, that faith was an eraser. But God was telling me, no, it actually takes more faith to look at those broken pieces with me.
Yes, I love that, because what you wrote that in the book, and one of the things that I loved is that you said that God wants to take you where you've been and show you that he was there. And I know that reminds me of a story that happened in my own life, where my dad was kind of in and out of my own life, and he was kind of a dad of convenience. He died when I was a senior in college, but I remember one of the most traumatic memories of my childhood was he said he was going to come and get me, and we're at this gas station, and I'm getting ready to go to my dad's house for the weekend. It's going to be amazing, right? And then we wait there for 45 minutes, and the guy's not showing up, and so I'm like, what is going on? I'm probably 8 or 9, maybe 7, something like that. And I just remember my parents pulling back onto the interstate, and I am like screaming. I'm like, no, just 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. And about a year ago, I was in a inner healing prayer session that I was doing, and the Lord just began to show me things. And it wasn't even in the session. It was kind of, I'm a runner. And so I was running one day, and I'd gotten done, and I was cooling down, and the Lord said, hey, I need to show you where I was that day. And he said, what you viewed as rejection from your father for so many years was actually my protection of you, because your dad was not in a place to see you that weekend. And if he had picked you up, something bad would have happened. So it was literally like I was blocking the interstate from him getting off of it so that you would be out of that harm. And what I had taken as rejection my whole entire life. The same thing in high school. I do this play, and then he never shows up, and I'm like so mad. I'm like, why did he not show up? And God said the same thing to me, and he healed those moments by telling me this and flipping the script on me there. And he said, Josh, had your dad ever told you that he was proud of you? And I was like, no. And he goes, if he had come to that play, then I need to show you where I was that day, because I was there, and I was sitting right beside your mom, and I saw Jesus. Like, I saw him in that moment, and just him like clapping for me and just being like, it was so amazing. Go, Josh, go, And he said, but if your dad had been there in that moment, you would have looked for him to give you so many signs of affirmation and stuff that he would have never given you. And what you again took as rejection was actually my protection of you. That's where I was. And as I'm reading your book, that theme of God wanting to take you, where you've been and show you that he was there. That's what he did to me. And it sounds like that there were some moments like that in your life too, right?
Oh my gosh. I just could not, I just feel like crying. It's so healing, because for me to hear your story, it just like proves God's real.
Yeah.
Because he took you back.
Yes.
To where you were also like looking for your father. And when you talked about like being in the play and him sitting next to your mom and cheering you on, like that was also another scene. I'm thinking, oh wow, we know the same Jesus.
Yes.
Because when I was little, I would be playing at those high school concerts, there's nobody out there.
Yeah.
All these other dads cheering, standing up. It breaks my heart. And it's good. Tears are healing, because it means we're showing up. We're here. So when you describe that scene, it brought me back to that scene, and Jesus did bring me back, just like you. Yeah. And it's interesting because I never wanted to look back. So yes. And so, but when he did bring me back, like you said, it's these tears, because it's amazing. It's the same thing. I saw Jesus. Yeah. He was there clapping, because every time the crowds would disperse, when I'm performing, I'm cheerful, I'm happy, I'm like playing my instrument. Yes. And it's funny because, my orchestra teacher, he put me as first chair, and I actually I grew up below the poverty line, and I didn't have money to have lessons, but my teacher, the kindness that God brings on our path, he gave me the school instrument. He spent time teaching me. But, it was sad because it seemed like it didn't matter how well I did. There was no father. Like, what difference did it make? Right, Josh? That was kind of like the cry. And I think we all have those moments. And when you're sharing your story, I remember the crowds dispersing. And I could no longer pretend.
Yeah.
Because there was no father that came. And I see all my friends, they had their dad with them.
Yes.
But yet Jesus says, I want you to come back with me. I want to show you I was there.
Yes.
And now because you shared that story, I'm a little less alone.
Yes.
Because now I'm with you, you're with me, and I have a brother. And so that's kind of like the theme of these stories. Like, why am I sharing this story? It's because I was lonely, not because I didn't have friends.
Yes.
I was lonely because, like, this very moment, a little more of my heart has come home because you shared your story with me.
Yeah.
I'm a little less alone.
Yes.
Yes.
So
And that's exactly how I felt
blessing.
just even reading the book too, you know, and I know we're just meeting for the first time today, but it was just one of those things where it immediately, when you wrote that line, it immediately took me there. And I was like, man, I have to share that story while we're chatting today, because it's just such a beautiful, healing, whole moment to realize that just asking yourself, you know, if you're watching this or listening to this, I want you to ask yourself, like, just like we're talking about, don't be afraid of pain in those moments. And because pain really is just like this piece of paper, you know, it's only going to hurt me if I sit there and I allow it and I put the paper to my wrist and I decide I'm going to do a bunch of paper cuts with this or something, right? Or if I take it to my eyelids, or if I take it to something, right? And I know that's kind of graphic, but at the end of the day, it's true. And that's the same thing. Like, pain in our lives, like, it's only going to be there and manifest itself if we don't face it. And that's one of the things that you talk about, is like really facing it. And I just want to say thank you for doing that, because that's brought so much courage in your life, right?
Well, you know, I'm here because I want to read this line from this book. When you were speaking, it's like we're echoing each other because we know the same loving Savior.
Yes.
Okay. And you know how you said you had to go back and look at Jesus. I had to write letters to myself. And I shared them in the book because I believe it's universal. Those words that God is speaking to us, the more personal, even though I was kind of like, oh my gosh, the, you know, paper cut on your wrist. And I was like, oh, but it was good because it was in your voice.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, we have to stop talking about all these echo chamber type words. You know, we need to be real.
Yes.
How else are people going to know God is real? You know, the scripture says you are a letter of Christ.
Yes.
Not on tablets of stone.
Yes.
Not in the same words that, you know, we're reciting to each other to be acceptable, but on human hearts, the word human, our human experience. So, okay, here, let me read this. It says, don't edit yourself, because when you try to please everyone, you end up losing yourself. How can others get to know you if you can't be honest about who you are and who you aren't? And how can they know God is at work in your life if you don't show the valleys as well as the mountains?
Yes.
You and I, just like, we had a connection. I know our readers, our listeners are connecting to you and me because we have those moments where we looked for our father, we looked for our mother, we looked for our spouse, we looked for our child. I mean, as I go and I speak, you know, like people share, like, you know what? It breaks my heart. My child has left me, you know. We all have these broken stories, but we're so alone because we're so afraid, like, I'm the only one. And like, just like you, we just like have freedom here. Like, oh my gosh, we're all here right now. And I feel so much less alone. That's what we need. Oh my gosh, this pandemic, we've all been traumatized, really.
Exactly. Yeah. I say that every single one of us are walking around with low-lining PTSD symptoms right now, just simply because, you know, and I think I've said this before, but at the end of the day, you know, 9/11 happened and there was an end date to it. But COVID, we're still saying they're going, well, I did the vaccine's here. I think that this thing's over, but I don't really know if it is. And now what's next? And so we've got all these things going on in our heads, and that just produces anxiety over anxiety and all these things. And so that's why I think it is so important to be in community. That's one of the things I loved about your book too, because there were some moments where, like, you write about how your mom didn't even come to your wedding, right? And then you had people from your community kind of stand in some of those gaps. And I wrote this down of, you know, it says that God changed your identity of loneliness that you wore as a name. And I thought, wow, what a great sentence. Like God changed my identity of loneliness that I was wearing. And that there were some people and you wrote this, there will be goodness in the world because for one moment you paused and spent time with someone, not as they should be, but just as they are. And I thought about that wedding moment that you had and what a powerful time that must have been for you to be able to go, man, my mom's not even here, but these people are standing right here and they're loving me just as I am right now on a very special day, but also recognizing some of the pain that I'm going through or feeling, or I don't know exactly what you were going through. Please tell us. But that's just like, just such an incredible moment there too, for me.
Well, you're really gifted in your calling. And it's powerful because you have the gift of encouragement, but it's matched with discernment. You're seeing through somebody's story into their heart. And that allows us to be invited to show up. So I just thank you for this opportunity to be here. I like to read my words because, that's where my safety is. Since I was a little girl, that's where between the pages of my journal, that's where I could be who I wanted to be, feel what I wanted to feel. No one could take that away from me. That was the one place. So if you're okay with it, I'd like to read an excerpt about what happened about that wedding day. And it's this scene, this is actually, something that nobody knew about me at the time. I was in my 30s. I was already working for 15 years. I didn't fall in love until my 30s. Like so many things were broken. I was like, okay, here's another thing that's broken. Why haven't I fallen in love? Like everybody's married by the time I hit 30. I thought maybe I'm just destined to be alone. Maybe because I have such a broken past, maybe there's something wrong with my heart. You know what I mean? And so I just said, well, I guess I just have to wait until I get to heaven. I think the best I can make out of my life is to help others and to serve others. That was at the time. And by God's grace, he used that, but I suddenly met this blonde hair, blue-eyed guy. I did not think I would be marrying him because I thought I had to find a Chinese American that would fit into this crazy world of Ama. And, we were in our 30s and some of us were going to go to ride roller coasters in Southern California. Well, the secret that I didn't tell anybody is my mom, the family code is every time there's a vacation or a holiday, you have to spend it with family.
Wow.
Family is first, not friends. So I told Eric, I said, oh yeah, I won't be able to make it, not this time. And you know what's special about Eric? He said, why? Most guys would be like, oh, okay. Eric was like, why? It's July 4th. Like you're not working. Why? You need to go. So suddenly I told my mom, I said, Ma, this is just a simple, fun weekend to go ride roller coasters. I haven't dated anybody since college. I'm 31 years old. Ma, maybe you're right. It won't last, but I like Eric. I won't know if I don't try. I've taken care of you my whole life. Why can't you be happy for me? I started crying because I was more scared than anything. Scared that I said it so bluntly. Scared because I'd never spoken to my mom this way. How stupid can you be? Ma scoffed. A man comes along, pays you a little attention, and you think that's what makes you special? You've forgotten who you are, Bonnie Lee. You see, that name, broken, lonely. You're my daughter. If it weren't for me, there would be no you. She started wailing at the top of her lungs, her face turning purple, her fist balled up in a fist. I thought she would storm out and slam the door, grab her car keys like she always did when I was a little girl, leaving me home alone. Instead, she thundered out. I heard drawers opening and shutting in the kitchen. Next thing I knew, she flew back into the room with a glint of steel, brandishing a large pair of scissors in her hand.
Wow.
She shoved my sliding closet doors open, violently yanking the clothes off the hangers, shaking as she pulled apart my clothes, running the blade of the shears against my clothes and tugging at them like she was strangling the life out of them. Everything you have, everything you are is because of me. She screamed each line as she clawed at my desk, swiping things, throwing them all over my room in a confetti of flurry. I stood there choking my tears, afraid to move or breathe. Confusion engulfed me. How can something so simple become so wrong? And the thought hit me like a siren. Something is very, very wrong.
Yeah.
That I was afraid. And there's no spoilers in this, but I actually thought maybe my mom might kill me. Wow. Anybody that's been in an abusive relationship
Yeah.
would understand. Okay. The violence of the verbal and the cutting up, I thought maybe she might end it right here and now. And when you said for my wedding, I never told anybody this, Josh. Suddenly, every one of us is going to have to come into a crossroad where you're going to have to choose. Maybe something you had been coping with earlier in your life. You thought, I can handle it. I can carry this secret. I can carry this dysfunction, this toxicity in my life. I've made it work. One day, there will come to a point where we're going to have to be more honest with ourselves than we are comfortable with. And in that moment, I told that secret. It was so embarrassing because, when you're younger, it's almost like I wish somebody helped me say it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, it gets harder and harder. Now, I was a Bible teacher by this point, Josh. Wow. I'm a Christian author and speaker. Okay. Like, how do you just suddenly tell somebody, excuse me, but my life at home is completely toxic and I'm afraid? I had to do it. And somebody took me in. I lived with somebody for 6 months.
Wow.
Right before my wedding, because I was afraid.
Wow.
On that wedding day in our Chinese culture, there's more in the book, but in the Chinese culture, the more a daughter is beloved, she has lots of gold. We're talking about 24 karat yellow gold here. Okay.
Wow.
Phoenix braces up here and jade, like the more valuable a daughter is by the family, they're going to hang all this jewelry on her. I had no jewelry and I was just like this sense of shame, But you know what? The woman I stayed with, she loves making jewelry. She strung a string of pearls for me on my wedding day. So even though I didn't have gold or jade, God's family stepped in.
Yes.
I had this string of pearls. I didn't have anything blue. I didn't have anything borrowed. I had my family, God's people there.
Wow.
So everyone needs to know. You might be wondering, my life is so broken through the pandemic. My health isn't, maybe like shattered, or somebody in my family has died of COVID, or maybe, my finances are all like in crumbled shape. And you may wonder, where is the goodness in this world? And I want you to be able to hear Josh and me share your stories, your presence. The times you are living in the valley, you can turn to another person and share your story, because that person will be like, oh my gosh, thank goodness there's somebody else that's with me.
Yes.
And that is goodness in the world. That is how brokenness becomes beautiful.
Yeah. I just want to echo that and just say, every single person watching or listening, like, your just very presence on the face of humanity matters. Like, you matter. Just you showing up, just for even your family, even for your child, even for, the people that you work with. It was so funny. I was just, I was at a Publix one time, and I just wanted to say to this cashier, like, I'm so glad you're here. Like, I just felt like I needed to say that to this person. And so I did. And she just kind of looked at me like, okay. But, and I got out of the store and I said, wow, like, there are complete strangers that when they look at me, even though they may not say this, right, they want me here. Like everybody on the face of the planet, like, unless you're just like a really, 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 really messed up person, right? Like we look at other people that we don't even know in a park, and we're like, I'm so glad that person is jogging by me right now, whether we're going to say that or not. But and it just goes to prove that just every single person matters. And I think about my grandpa, who died when he was in his 70s of lung cancer, and and the whole entire life that I knew him, he never had a job. Like, he was just always sitting there smoking his cigarettes, and I would like go back behind him and scare him, and he'd be like, "Oh, Josh," and everything. And then and that's all we really ever did was play this game back and forth. But I was just thinking about how much just that mattered to me as a kid. And I wasn't sitting there going like, man, my grandpa's some CEO that does this and this and this, I was just like, he's just sitting there at home. But I love being with him, just watching The Price is right with Bob Barker, you know? I mean, it was just so good. But yeah, so people's presence matters. And I love that you just bring that in through your book and in your stories as well too.
Oh yeah. I mean, that is just so important, especially like, I just feel it's so beautiful. Like these stories you're telling, that's why you are who you are. That's why you're bringing your message, your whole being, because you are able to recognize those moments are golden. And that is what really matters. Like when you talked about the prices, right? I'm like, yes, I had a memory of me also, like, yeah, of my grandpa.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so fun. Yeah. I mean, that is just like the best. And so, yeah, even with my kids, whatever they're watching, I'll just plop down on the sofa and I know this is what matters. Yes. One day they're going to look back, you know, when I'm gone. I won't say it to my kids, it scares them when I say that, right? But you and I know, like, they're going to look back and they're just going to be laughing like, oh yeah, my mom was watching Bugs Bunny with me, you know, and we're laughing at Elmer Fudd, you know. It's just that's the legacy I want to leave with my children.
Yes.
Right? Absolutely. That's the legacy. It's these moments, those beautiful moments, like, that's going to get them through the valleys. That's going to get them through brokenness. They're going to look back and say, you know what? There is goodness in the world.
Yes. Yeah. And that goes back to a line that you wrote too, which says, my life is beautiful simply because it's my life. And you realizing that. And so I would love for you just to think about this question. If you were to sit down with somebody in a coffee shop right now and they were just asking you about their wholeness journey and they tell you their story or whatever it is, you know, based off of your experiences, based off of what you wrote in the book, like what would be the 2 to 3 minute answer? Like if you could only talk to them for 2 minutes of going like, if you could just start applying this into your life, you would see wholeness at a whole new level. What would that be?
I actually do this all the time. I'm like you, we're twinning. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody's next to me in line and we're waiting at Starbucks, or like, oh, you know, like everybody's like, oh my God, it's taking a million years. I'll do that. I've got 2 minutes. I've got 1 minute. I say, hey, so what do you usually like to do when you're not like working? I was just curious, like, okay, let me guess. And, you know, depending what they look like, I'll say like, oh, you know, they'll tell me. That's the first thing I'll ask you, because inevitably when somebody tells you what they like to do, say, how about when you were a kid? What did you like to do? What brought you smiles? And then they'll share, their face will light up. And then I'll say, okay, so do you still do it? Most people will not. They're like, no, I'm too busy, or no, just like, I'm just working, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what happened? Why do you think it's so hard? Somebody will always share a story.
Wow.
Always share a story about how they stopped doing what they love or why they can't do it anymore. They'll share their worries and their problems. And I say, you know what? You're worth it. And I said, let me ask you this question. I put it in the book. Okay. And I say, I ask you okay, I'll just tell you. I'll say, what is it that you would do if you could be more honest than you're comfortable with?
Yeah.
What would you do? Gosh, this is terrible. I mean, you're so unhappy. I said, because your face lit up when you talked about what it is that gave you joy. And I said, what would you say if you could be more honest than you're comfortable with?
Yeah.
That conversation always is amazing.
Yes.
Always is amazing. And I want to encourage here within this minutes. I said, one day you're going to have to make a really hard decision, because I'll say that. I said, you know what, maybe right now it seems okay for you, but because I've been through panic attacks and anxiety, because I put that part of myself to you, I said, one day you're going to face that moment where you're going to have to decide, are you going to leave the life where other people are going to tell you what your life is going to be like? Or are you going to choose you? I said, I don't know what your faith is, but I believe in God. And I know God created you not to be on this earth to put yourself to the side. And I love hearing what gives you joy. Yes. I love seeing you light up. So I say, you'll need to count the cost, because I said, it's not worth it to be held hijacked in a toxic relationship or by stress or busyness or your job. I said, you're important. I said, you will need to choose peace. You will need to be honest with yourself. There will come a time for this honesty, and you are worth it. You are worth it. Yeah, there's this one guy, I was actually in Dallas last week, and he told me that there's a Barnes and Nobles down the street. I've never been to Southlake, Texas. Okay. I was there for interviews to be on a show to talk about my story of Sweet Like Jasmine. And I forgot my notebook, my journal. So I needed to grab it. So I went in there and I was so surprised. In Southlake, Texas, which I've never been, this girl born in Chinatown had her book on the shelf.
Wow.
So I went back and I told the guy that gave me the directions. Okay. Let's just call him Jordan. Okay. So I say, hey, Jordan, you won't believe it. Look, I'm actually an author and my book is here. Like, I've never even been to Southlake, Texas. He's like, what's your book about? I just gave him this book and it just says, I'm the daughter of a mail order bride and I've been hiding all my life and I'm broken, but I'm lonely. Okay. He starts tearing, a dude. Okay. He starts tearing and he does this. Dudes always do this when they cry. They always do this. And then they like, I don't know why dudes think like, if you do this, it's going to stop the tears. Okay. They do that. He's like, I'm like, what's going on, Jordan? What is this? What's happening? He's like, okay, I don't want to talk about it, but I know my mom is going to love this. She needs this. I said, really? What's going on? She's like, I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it. Oh, okay. But she's just going through a hard time. And you know what I did? I said, I need you to hear this, Jordan. You are worthy. Your story is important. I know you love your mom. I could tell her story is just like enwrapping all around you, but I want you to know that you are worthy, Jordan. Your mother, God bless her, she's going through a hard time. She's going to have to walk through that valley. I said, but your life is important. I want to hear what's going on in your life, because let me guess. I said, are you the oldest? He's like, how did you know? I said, I'm the oldest. I said, you're such a loving person. I can just tell right off the bat. I said, you need to remember you have a story. You were born in this world to live your story.
Yes.
You will be there to help your mom, but she does not own your story.
Yes.
He was like, oh my gosh, are you psychic? He said that. Are you a psychic? And I said, no, I'm just human.
Yeah.
I said, have you ever told anybody this? And he started telling me the story. I want to respect his confidentiality. Hard things are happening with his mom. And I said, have you told anybody? He's like, no. I said, you were not born to be alone. You need to know that you can get through this. It's going to be hard. It's going to be messy, but you need to start writing your story in your life. Okay. And I said, do you have siblings? He's like, yes. I go, see, your siblings are going to watch what you're going to do. And he's a young man. And I said, I don't know what faith you are, but there are people you can trust like me. He's like, oh no, I don't go to church. I said, okay, you don't have to go to church to have somebody come alongside you. I said, I'm going to have somebody from, you can trust, because you trust me now, right? Do you trust me? He's like, yeah, I do. I said, you just need to tell your story. He's not going to tell you what to do, but if and when you need that support, you have somebody who's got your back. I said, would you be comfortable if I could give your name to somebody that I trust?
Yeah.
He said, okay. I said, yeah, great. That's an example of a connection point. And how did it start? It's because I shared my brokenness.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I want to say thank you so much for doing that. And it is an incredible story. Again, Sweet Like Jasmine, finding identity in a culture of loneliness. And I just want to say thank you so much, Bonnie, for just being on the show today. I already feel like you're my irreplaceable friend, and I can't wait to have just even more conversations with you. And so I love California, my wife and I. So, hopefully we can connect when maybe we're out there next time.
You need to have dim sum. Yeah. Come here. I'll take you out for dim sum, which is Chinese version of tapas. Okay.
Okay. Awesome.
I want you to try it. Yes.
Yes. I am down so much. And I can't wait to just even have you on again, and maybe and have you on the TV show as well too. So, but I want you guys to go and check this out, get her book, because it really will change your life. And I mean that in a good way. There's so much good stuff in there. Thank you for even the practicals that are in there too, for like the questions at the end of some of the chapters, and just even the prayers that you have. I mean, I know even for me, like as a dude, I'm sitting there going, man, I'm going to be reading some of these every day and really applying those, because it's so good. So much good stuff. Thank you so much. It was an honor to have you on, Bonnie.
Thank you, Josh. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much, brother.
Awesome. Hey guys, you've been listening to The Road to Wholeness, and I want to encourage you to check out www.streamsofwholeness.com or go to joshhawk.com for more resources on how we can help you on your road to wholeness.